بدك يسوي سويه هناك. يعني تعب عمرنا كله راح، باتنا ذكرياتنا حياتنا ضيعتوها.
The Israeli military has just destroyed a major media building in Gaza. This building was home to Al Jazeera, the Associated Press, Middle East Eye, 2 local radio stations, and a blood bank. Now, according to international law, this is a war crime, and I'll get to more on that later. First, I want to show you a video here. So, as Middle East Eye tweeted out, watch. The owner of Al Jalal Tower pleads with an Israeli officer on live TV to let journalists collect their gear before he bombs it. Moments later, Israeli airstrikes demolished the Gaza building that housed several international media offices, including Al Jazeera and Middle East Eye. So I'm going to play this video for you. You're going to see this discussion. It'll be subtitled, and then you'll also see the building get destroyed.
تسأل المسؤول ونقول له احنا يعني 10 دقائق ما حيصير شيء بين الساعة 3 والساعة 3 و10، العمارة مش حترجع تاني خلاص. يعني احنا بدنا 4 تنفار بس 4 وكلهم لابسين الدروع، مش حيروحوا يجيبوا أجهزة قتالية ولا حيجيبوا كاميراتهم وشغلهم، هذول كانوا في بث مباشر. يعني هاي تو كلهم هاي نشوفهم تو رجعوا كانوا كلهم في المستشفى في مكان وين قتلوا ال10 انفار امبارح في المجزرة، هذول كلهم هيك الناس الجاية، ما في حدا منهم مخرب. إذا أعطينا 10 دقائق ساور المسؤول قول له يعني 10 دقائق ما حيصير شيء.
يابا
تفضل.
لقيت يدخل العمارة ولا واحد، صاروا الناس.
احنا محترمين رأيكم يا عمي، احنا ما بنقول لكم بدنا نيجي غصب عنكم. أعطينا 10 دقائق.
لا اخوي ليش 10 دقائق القيت؟ احنا صار لنا ساعة نفس الناس، بدنا انه الناس يرجعوا للعمارة للبرج، خاطر من شانهم مش من شاني، هذا حياتهم مش حياتي.
بقول احنا الا نتجادل معك الا 10 دقائق، لو في ال10 دقائق سبحت لنا الروح كان راحوا جابوا الاجهزه تاعتهم ورجعوا. يعني احنا مش باكين على الجهاز خلاص، انت بدك تسوي سويه هناك. يعني تعب عمرنا كله راح، باتنا ذكرياتنا حياتنا ضيعتوها. بدك تتكلمني هالوقت على كاميرا، ما بدي احكي على كاميرا خلاص، ما بدي اللي بدك اياه اسويه. انا حسكر واعمل اللي بدك اياه. في رب كبير. تفضل
يا ابا صل على النبي.
اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد.
لقيت في ناس بالبرج ولا لا؟
لا ما في ناس، لا ما في ناس.
ما في ناس؟
لا ما في ناس لا.
في عملية مسح ورصد يجري في هذه الآن غارات متتالية تزلزل المكان. من جديد انهار البرج.
So as you see there, the Israeli officer that was on the phone discussing or talking with the owner of the building had no interest in letting the journalists back in to grab their gear. Of course, the whole reason the Israeli government is destroying this building is because they want a media blackout. So they don't want people going back in to get their gear that they're going to have to report on this issue, this crisis in the future. Now, Al Jazeera's office in Gaza destroyed by an Israeli airstrike. The building also housed residential apartments and the AP Bureau, as I discussed. This is the 6th consecutive day Israel has been bombing Gaza. The Gaza death toll is now at 140, including 39 children. Now, the AP reacted to this. So this is a statement from the president and CEO of the Associated Press, saying here, "We are shocked and horrified that the Israeli military would target and destroy the building housing AP's bureau and other news organizations in Gaza. They have long known the location of our bureau and new journalists were there. We received a warning that the building would be hit. We are seeking information from the Israeli government and are engaged with the U.S. State Department to try to learn more. This is an incredibly disturbing development. We narrowly avoided a terrible loss of life. A dozen AP journalists and freelancers were inside the building, and thankfully we were able to evacuate them in time. The world will know less about what is happening in Gaza because of what happened today." And of course, as I said, this is the entire point. The entire point is for the world to know less about what is happening in Gaza. Now, as I said, this, according to international law, is a war crime. So here you have on the UN's page under war crimes, intentionally directing attacks against the civilian population as such or against individual civilians not taking direct part in hostilities, intentionally directing attacks against civilian objects, that is, objects which are not military objectives. This is a war crime. And in case it's not clear, the term civilian includes journalists. So this statement here, the illegality of attacks on journalists and news media derives from the protection granted to civilians and civilian objects under international humanitarian law, and from the fact that the media, even when used for propaganda purposes, cannot be considered as military objectives except in special cases. And just to be clear here, the except in special cases is basically if somebody pretends to be a journalist and is in fact involved in acts of war, or so this is obviously not the case here. So this was clearly a war crime. Now, will this be called out by lawmakers internationally? Will it be called out by lawmakers in the US that could be putting pressure on the Israeli government to do something about this? Will it be called out by other media outlets? Unlikely. Now, more here from the UN. When attacks on journalists remain unpunished, a very negative message is sent that reporting the embarrassing truth or unwanted opinions will get ordinary people in trouble. Furthermore, society loses confidence in its own judiciary system, which is meant to protect everyone from the attacks on their rights. Perpetrators of crimes against journalists are thus emboldened when they realize they can attack their targets without ever facing justice. And this is the case here for Israel. Imagine any other country doing this, bombing the building where the Associated Press works out of. And on that point, Abby Martin here tweets out, what other government demolishes high-rise buildings of international media agencies? Israel knows it can commit these war crimes in broad daylight because it's shrouded with impunity by the US. This is why you don't see this from any other country except Israel, because the Israeli government knows they can get away with this. These war crimes are, as I'm going to show you here, media is in some cases getting a little better at acknowledging what is going on the ground, but still, for the most part, are unwilling to directly call out the war crimes, the ethnic cleansing, the apartheid. So they will dance around the subject. They'll talk about how, these many children died in Gaza, and that's a horrible thing. But they won't actually get to the heart of the issue here, which is the imbalance of power. You have the Israeli government bombing an open-air prison that is Gaza, an occupied territory they control. They can stop this by no longer making it an occupied territory, by freeing the people that live there. But the media does not get to the heart of that issue. That said, as I alluded to there are some cases where the media is just, it's crazy that for me this is a surprising tweet, because it is so rare just to see the facts reported as the facts. So City News Toronto here tweeting out, an Israeli airstrike destroyed a high-rise building in Gaza City that housed offices of media outlets hours after another Israeli air raid on a densely populated refugee camp killed at least 10 Palestinians from an extended family, mostly children. So here you have just the straight facts. Again, still avoiding the terms apartheid, avoiding war crimes, avoiding ethnic cleansing, but still reporting the facts here. And the fact that this is a surprising turn of events, to have the media just report this story honestly, at least in terms of the actual actions on the ground, it shows you how dishonest the coverage has been for the longest time on this crisis. And it's not just the media, of course. Lawmakers, for the most part, are either ignorant, willfully ignorant, or know the realities and simply don't care about Palestinian life.